What do you feel about these two statements? A husband says, I will be unloving to motivate my wife to be respectful. Or a wife says, I will be disrespectful to motivate my husband to be loving. The question that arises from these two statements is, can we deprive our spouse of what they need to motivate them to meet our need? All of us should say no. In fact, this feeds the crazy cycle. Without love, she reacts without respect, and without respect, he reacts without love. So what is the key to motivating my spouse? I call it the energizing cycle. His love motivates her respect, and her respect motivates his love. You see, the key to motivating another person is by meeting that person's deepest need, especially during conflict. Let me ask you this. Is a husband energized and motivated to respond lovingly when his wife has a respectful regard for his spirit as they differ on some issue? The answer is usually yes. Or let me ask you this. Is a wife energized and motivated to respond respectfully when her husband has a loving regard for her heart, though they have a disagreement? The answer most often is yes. In session 3 through 8, we unpack the power of the energizing cycle. We have incredible power to influence the spirit of our spouse. Why do we have this kind of influence? Because our spouse wants us to influence them this way. They want to come under the influence of love and respect. We know this because we want to be influenced this way. We respond to love and respect and resist what feels like the lack of love and respect, or worse, what feels like hostility and contempt. In session 3, we begin with the phrase from the energizing cycle, his love motivates her respect. We explain what the Bible says about how to spell love to a wife. Husbands, when you act on this information, it is next to impossible for your wife to resist you. The crazy cycle will slow down. Why? Because she does not want to negatively react to you. This is why God commands a husband in Ephesians 5:33 to love his wife. The Lord knows that a wife needs this love. And when you meet that need, she's motivated to respond respectfully. Let me mention a couple of other things. In the workbook, I introduce a husband and wife, Missy and Stu. I want you to read an episode between the two of them and answer the questions about that episode. Also, some of you may be wondering, Emerson, who moves first in all of this, the husband or the wife? Who starts the energizing cycle? In the midweek devotional, we are answering the question, who makes the first move in your marriage? Can you guess what my answer is? Make sure you do that assignment and find the answer. Okay, are you ready? Let's begin session 3. His love motivates her respect. Well, the crazy cycle that we've been looking at, without love, she reacts without respect, he reacts without love, and then without love, she reacts without respect, he reacts without love, and this baby starts to spin, and it can get out of control. And of course, people say, but who moves first on this, Emerson? I mean, who moves first? And I remember praying about that, and this inaudible voice, the Lord kind of said, the one who sees himself or herself as the most mature moves first. So that's the answer to that question. And some people say, but my spouse makes me so mad. They just make me so mad. I can't do this. They make me so mad. I said, really? Yeah. I said, well, now think about that for a moment. Can you just think of those moments where I'm so out of control since I married you. I can't. Ring, 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 ring. Hello? Well, hi, Pastor Greg. Yes, we're going to attend the prayer meeting tonight. Well, shalom to you too. God bless. And furthermore, I'm sorry. See, we're not out of control. When the phone rings, it's proof that we're not out of control. We just think we are. We think that they are making us mad, and that really is not. They're not driving us crazy. And people say, but I really don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can reduce that craziness. I don't know if I have it in me. Well, let me ask you this. If a film crew followed you for 6 weeks, and if you never got angry at your spouse, and at the end of that 6 weeks, if you didn't get angry at your spouse, you get $20 million tax-free. Would you get angry at your spouse over that 6 weeks period? Yes or no? No. You see, we can do this. We're just not getting paid enough. But I will tell you that we can't motivate this person to do the love and respectful thing by depriving them of love and respect. We can't motivate them to meet our need by depriving them of their need. So if, as mature adults who want to move first, we've got to lock into some ideas. And we've got to really ask ourselves if we want to influence, because I'm going to share with you, we have the power. What I'm going to be sharing with you can influence the spirit of your spouse. It is so powerful that they can't not respond if there's any degree of goodwill. It's that powerful. But what happens when we get irritated during the crazy cycle moments, the last thing we want to do is be loving on the heels of someone who's not respecting us, or to respect someone or come across that way to someone who's not loving. It's counterintuitive. It's not natural. It's even countercultural. And so the question is, what is the incentive for us to do that? In our last session tomorrow, we'll explain what I believe is the greatest incentive. The conference consists of 3 questions. Why do we negatively react to each other? We looked at that, the crazy cycle. How do we motivate each other? That's going to be the energizing cycle that we're going to begin tonight in this session. The key to motivating another person is meeting that person's deepest need, especially during conflict. But the need our spouse has isn't the need that we have, and the need they have during conflict is the very thing we don't want to meet because they're irritating us by taking up offense and deflating over something that is such a childish thing. And so the challenge for us is to think through, this issue of motivation. How do you motivate a person? The key to motivating a person is meeting that person's deepest need. And we're going to see the energizing cycle. His love motivates her respect. Her respect motivates his love. And her respect motivates his love. And her respect motivates his love. And this baby spins in an energizing way. And the way you get off the crazy cycle is by getting on the energizing cycle. If I said, tell me when you've stopped thinking of the number 9, raise your hand. When you've stopped thinking of the number 9, raise your hand. See, the only way you can stop thinking of the number 9 is to do what? Think of another number. You got to replace the negative with something else. So if I say stop the crazy cycle, you're just going to fixate on it. So we got to shift from the fact that we're all going to get on the crazy cycle. If you marry, you've not sinned, but you will have trouble. 1 Corinthians 7:28. And so we're going to have these moments. Tuesday night is coming, and we're going to spin. It isn't a matter that we're not going to spin. We're going to spin. The question is, are we going to spin once or twice or 42 times? Some of us are spinning out of control. All of us are going to spin. Sarah and I every week get on the crazy cycle because we have different preferences. We're both good-willed people who have strong feelings about a number of things. And so we spin. The question is, do we spin on an ongoing basis or do we try to jump off? We have the tools when we want to jump off. There are times Sarah will take my book and follow me around the house and says, what would you say to a husband who's treating his wife the way you're treating me right now? We practice what we preach, okay? We get on the crazy cycle. And we say this because you're not going to get off the crazy cycle. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Just learn, though, how to jump off once it starts. Some people say, we're about to spin. Fasten your seatbelt. Or they'll grab their throat. You're joking me. You're standing on my air hose. You're cutting it with a knife. I'm dying. They introduce a little humor, and usually one of you's funny, and you got to lighten up. Some of you are wired way too tight. You're going to die. But one of you tends to have wit, and I want you to use that wit not at the other's expense, but to lighten it up. Lighten it up. And you did it when you dated, and you did it early on, but now you've stopped because you're irritated with each other, and you don't want to be the mature one because if they would just change, this would be better, and you're tired. I get that. But you have power. You're just not using it. You just like being powerless. You'd rather be mad and powerless than relax a little bit, humor it, and move on. And so there are any number of people do all kinds of things to lighten up a little bit. And I want to say to you, lighten up. One of the techniques, just understand that. But now the question really is, okay, well then, how do I energize this person? How do I meet that person's need when I really don't want to? Well, you have to decide, do I have it within me to motivate this person, to influence this person, to energize, to persuade, to convict, to convince? The answer to this is yes. And some of this is almost an axiom. If you do this, they are going to respond. For instance, if a man just says, I'm sorry for being unloving, will you forgive me? I'm sorry. we're going to share with you, it's almost axiomatic for a woman, if she senses that's sincere and authentically said, not just because you're trying to get sex or something, you know, but it's authentically said, she'll go, well, I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have said that. It's almost axiomatic. She can't not do that unless she's bitter. If she's a good-willed woman, if you're genuine, she say, well, I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have said that. And we're going to see that men, when you enter their honor code, he can't help but respond, because when you do the honorable, respectful thing, you're a better man than he is at that moment. And he just feels compelled to move toward you, not to disconnect, but move toward you. He doesn't move toward you as quickly as you move toward him when he apologizes. Men are slower, but that's because they're trying to figure this out. But he will return, and he will make amends. He has his ways. He may not just say, let's talk about this. He doesn't want to talk about it. I mean, but he's under the sink fixing the faucet that you've been asking him to do for the last 3 weeks. I mean, he makes his gesture. You'll see the gesture. It is loud. It is clear. It just is not a card with I love you on it. But it's a gesture, and it's so obvious. I point out to women, there's the gesture. There's the gesture. There it is. See what you did here? Here's the gesture. It's not what you wanted to understand, but there's the gesture. He's making amends. So obvious. He can't not do that. So the question is, do you want power? Or do you want to be a weakling, a victim, that they control you emotionally? Or you pout? See, I'm going to tell you that we're all adolescents in the home, because we let down our hair with the person we love and we're married to. I spoke to 5 NFL head football coaches and their spouses. You would know them all. And 3 hours, we had this special thing. And I said, my opinion, all these years, we all act like teenagers in the home with this person we're married to. And then we unpack that, all of them. These great figures, oh yeah. Because what they do on the sidelines isn't how they deal with this woman. And they also, we talked about how we pout, how we whine, we feel sorry for ourselves. These are guys, and so I say that because we all do this. And so what we have to do is come to that point where we limit that. We're going to do it to some degree. I still do it. But it's this habitual reaction that we're trying to say, you don't have to do that. In fact, it isn't working. So if you change the game plan a little bit, what I'm going to share with you is you can do some things here that this person, you'll literally see them respond in a way of, why didn't I do this 15 years ago? Why didn't somebody tell me this 15 years ago? In fact, my daughter Joy started Love and Respect Now because she listened to all these people say, I wish I'd known then what I know now. So she started Love and Respect Now to get to the millennials, what people like you are saying, why didn't anybody tell us this? We've been on the crazy cycle for 30 years. I had a woman come up to me, livid. And I thought, are you mad at me? No, I've been on that crazy cycle for 30 years and nobody described it. Nobody told me how to get off of it. I've been in misery for 30 years. And so Joy has launched this to help couples stop this. So the question now is, how do you get on that energizing cycle? His love motivates her respect motivates his love. We're going to start with the love side, and we're going to talk to you men about this loving thing. But here you are on this marital bus ride, and I want to encourage you to decode, because in many ways we take up offense toward this woman because she talks to us in a way no one else does. But you can't project onto her masculine characteristics. There's no man in your world, no person in your world, but she's not a man, and she's not just everybody. She's your wife, uniquely so, and she has let down her hair, and so there are times she comes at you in a way that offends you. But is that her intent? And I'm going to tell you, no. But this man wrote me 13 years ago. I had an epiphany experience about 18 months ago that totally changed my life and my view of marriage. Without sounding too mystical, I have to say that I believe God spoke to me then, and the message and insight I was given I cannot keep to myself. In 2001, on a Saturday evening, I threw a dish in anger that hit my wife in the face. She called the police, and I was handcuffed and taken off to jail. A magistrate thought it best for me to sit out the weekend there and held me over on a lot of bond, and I wouldn't pay it, and that set my schedule for the weekend. After about 4 hours on a steel cot in the middle of the night, the novelty wore off. Boy, is she going to be sorry. And I really started to think hard about why I was there. With nothing to read, no place to go, and not able to sleep anymore, I basically paced and prayed for 2 days. One single scripture stayed in my mind the whole time. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. For 2 days, God replayed the memories I had of our arguments, and each one I was acutely aware of how I failed to love my wife. It was like pausing a video and having someone point to it and say, see, right here. You could have reached out to her and reassured her, but you were too busy trying to prove your point. At one point, I was seeing her face all distorted with rage as she screamed at me, but totally without any sound. The mute button had been pushed in this memory. And then, little by little, the sound came up so I could hear it. Only the words were not what my wife had been screaming at me. Instead, they were replaced with other words, words that I needed to hear. I want you to love me. Why won't you love me? I'm afraid and insecure, and I need you to hold me and love me. And that's when I began to weep. All this time, I'd been so totally wrapped up in my own needs, to demand respect instead of being respectable, to be right at any cost, to win a petty argument. But this hurt our priceless relationship. I'd been so caught up in the words that I totally missed her heart, her need. This was my epiphany, and this is why Scripture commands me to love my wife the way Christ loves the church. And then he says, in my conversations with men since then, I've seen the color drain from their faces as I tell them about my experience. And I see the dawning of their own awareness as they realize how they've blown it too. We need this command, but not many of us know just how badly. Anyway, God sat me down for 2 days in jail, took away all the distractions, and forced me to look at myself in a way I'd never done before. By the end of it, I had been totally emotionally ruined and rebuilt, and I could hardly wait to get home and share with my wife what God had shown me. My last evening in my cell, I was freer than I'd ever been. I knew the Lord had spoken to me, and I knew I was going to do something about it. Then he says this, I love it. I waited over a year from my experience to validate the changes in my life. Then this fall, with the blessings of my pastor, I began to invite other men to join me to discuss the topic. That was in 2001. He's been in ministry over the last decade. He and his wife are serving Christ. Met with him several times. But this letter is classic. Why? He did not decode on the marital bus ride. He took up offense over a woman who was simply seeking reassurance that he loved her. Did she approach him in a way that his buddy would? No, but she's not his buddy. She's a woman. Have you not read? He who made them from the beginning made them male and female. Not wrong, just different. And he threw a plate at what? At a woman seeking reassurance of his love. So on the marital bus ride, we have to decode, and we're going to share with you how to proceed on that. But I need to say something to some of you men. We have shamed you men inappropriately. You know, we tell men to get in tune with their feminine side, but we don't tell women to get in tune with their masculine side. We become so biased against our sons that it saddens me. One person asked me, hey, what was the topic on Mother's Day when you did a Mother's Day message, Emerson? And how did you approach your Father's Day message? And I said, that is insightful. I exhorted the men and I affirmed the women. You're right. And men are tired. We're tired of being beat up. We're tired of being shamed. We're tired of being told that we're inadequate and we're disrespected because we fail to be loving as we ought to be. The deal is, gentlemen, you will never be natural at this. And if that's not the case, why would God command you to agape love? It'll never be natural. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You're normal. Be healed. I'm sincere about that. You're under divine command, so this will never feel natural. And women don't understand that. But she will tomorrow when I tell her about the respect side. It's not going to feel natural for her. So she's going to give you a new empathy. God doesn't command us to do things He designed us to do. And God has commanded you to put on agape love toward a woman, especially when she appears disrespectful, because it's not natural to do. And I'm saying to you, that's okay. And it never will be natural, and there's nothing wrong with you. And some of you become addicted as a way of coping with a misery that's been inflicted upon you inappropriately. And you are a man of God, and you need to come out and be again what God called you to be and quit living in that shame. And stop coping with the pain that has been superficially attached to you. And you understand exactly what I'm saying to you. That's right. One man does. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But I say that because what I'm about to share with you will not be natural, but you do it because you're a man of honor. And that becomes the compelling reason that there's a new incentive. I'm an honorable man who does the loving thing that will never be natural, but it is natural for me to do the honorable thing, which in this case is the loving thing. So the question now is, what is a husband's love? You've got the fill in the blanks here. I think it's on page 13 or 14. And all the answers are in the back. So again, you can fill those in later on if you're lazy. Don't even exercise your even finger. Just sit there with the finger still. You don't have to worry. But here's the overview. I'm going to give you these fill in the blanks, and then we're going to look at each of these. When you want to be with her face to face. When you want to be with her face to face. When you aren't secretly mad at her. When you empathize with her. When you resolve and reconcile with her. When you're completely committed to her. And when you treasure her above all else. Now, will any man here do these things perfectly, yes or no? No. And I love Proverbs 24:16 that says, a righteous man falls 7 times, but arises again. I love that, because even a righteous man fails. You are not going to love your wife perfectly. You're not going to do all these things. But what you can do is apologize for your imperfections. And you can actually touch her heart more deeply than if you were perfect, because she doesn't expect you to be perfect. She's just wanting you to acknowledge your imperfections. This is one of the areas of tension with Sarah and me. It's hard for us men, though, to acknowledge that we're wrong, like the Fonz. It's not natural, particularly if the little woman's going to use that as ammunition later on. And single guys here, this is God's game plan for you on how to love a woman. This is his game plan that will help you run down the marital field correctly. This is the wisdom. I was going to write a book on pre-marriage stuff, and I realized there are only 2 things that the Lord tells the pre-married. Be married in the Lord, and don't have sex. The fornication is the word. It's premarital sex. That there's got to be moral purity, and Christ has to be first. And I thought, Lord, why have you not told us more to the pre-married? And then that Lord spoke to me, I want the unmarried to know what I've said to the married, because that's the game plan. It's very simple. And so this is encouraging. If you get this, you're ready. So I put this, though, together in an acronym called COUPLE, C-O-U-P-L-E, C-O-U-P-L-E. Each letter represents one of the concepts we just looked at. But I also use the word couple because your wife envisions the 2 of you as a photograph, the 2 of you right there. And then conflict rips that. And she's going to do everything she can to tape it back together. When it comes to emotionality, women are very aggressive, very assertive. In the public arena, the business arena, assertive training for women, because women allow themselves to be interrupted out of their graciousness. They will go quiet. They're just that sensitivity. And so they've been told they need to be more assertive, and we've all understood that. But in the home, when it comes to emotionality, you don't have to tell that woman to do that. She's very aggressive in reconnecting, to taping it back together. When she's threatened, she gets aggressive because it matters to her. And so what happens then, when you get on this crazy cycle, it's like, whoa, this is, why? This is like no big deal, come on. Well, it is to her. Don't you dismiss it because it has value to her, because it's not that important to you. Just as I'm going to say to her tomorrow, there are times you just need to drop it. Will you remember it in a week? Will you remember it in a month? Will you remember it in 2 years? If not, some things just need to be dropped. You just have a need to talk about everything so that you eventually feel good, but you're killing him. It's just too much. And so there's a balance. And we're going to challenge him tonight to do some things with you and stay engaged because it meets your need. Tomorrow we're going to say, not always do you need to do that. And he doesn't have that need. And this is where we do the dance. And it's not a formula. We just have to sometimes figure out how to do it. But the Lord intends for us to try to do it. And in a given day, we recognize this is another Tuesday. Here we have a conflict.
Okay, so that first letter of couple, C, is closeness. That's that face-to-face closeness. So that C of couple, C-O-U-P-L-E, the C is closeness. What do I mean by closeness? It's the fill in the blank you just did, face-to-face closeness. Listen to Genesis 2:24. And let me share with you, I looked at everything the Bible says to husbands and wives. And this is an important point. Did you know that 1 Corinthians 13 is not about marriage? 1 Corinthians 7 is about marriage. And when we do not allow the biblical author to make his point to us, then it's clear that he's making it. And we begin to take what he says and apply it in an area that he didn't intend, we create some unintended consequences. When you create 1 Corinthians 13 as the basis for intimacy, women are already 10 steps ahead of the mark because you do that naturally. But that's dealing with spiritual gifts in the church and even in the world and how we are functioning. And many men in the world are more loving than the women are. But when you take that criteria and apply it to intimacy, he's already behind. 1 Corinthians 7 is the marriage chapter. Why do I say that? Because I've tried to be very careful of selecting what the Bible says to husbands and wives, just as my new book on love and respect in the family, looking at what the Bible says to parents about parenting. That's important to me. Whether it's important to you, I'm assuming it is. But see, what happens with people like me who are educated beyond our intelligence, so I got this PhD and I got this and I got that, then I do research, let's say on a conflict resolution. Then I'm asked to speak in a Sunday school. Oh, well, I want to talk about conflict resolution, but this is a Christian group and I need to be kosher, so I better find something in the Bible that justifies what I want to say. That's why this idea of unconditional respect is what I call a secret that's been hidden in plain sight for 2,000 years. We, in the last 40 years, have ignored the idea of unconditional respect. I don't know how many godly women who are head of major movements said, I've never seen that in Ephesians 5:33. I never saw what Peter said in 1 Peter 3. And yet both Peter and Paul, no two small apostles, teach this as their central teaching to wives. And I didn't see it. Why? Because we're not paying attention to it. We don't want to talk about unconditional respect. There's no university that's going to set aside grant money to study this question, how to show respect to your husband because he's a male. We are extremely biased against men. So what happens, we read the scripture in the same way. We just ignore it because we don't want to go there. And when Hosea says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, he's not talking about our ignorance with regard to social research. He's talking about the fact that we're not paying attention to what Abba, Yahweh, has spoken. And we do so to our own pain, destruction even. And so the Lord is saying, Paul preached the whole counsel of God in Asia in 2 years. And it's been said the faith has been once for all delivered. So you have this body of content from Genesis to Revelation. That's it. And within that, you have this narrow set of teachings on marriage. Here, there, and here. And so I put them together as best I knew how. And I put them in an acronym that we could remember it, couples, C-O-U-P-L-E. And we'll explain why that's important. It's a teaching technique. It's an arbitrary thing. But hopefully the meat will come through and you can remember it. Boom, got it. And you do this, and you're going to be loving your wife the way Christ wants you to love, and it's probably going to work if you want it to work. So let's begin with a salient passage on this closeness thing. Genesis 2:24. For this cause a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall cleave, there's the word cleave, to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. I could have used cleaveness, but it wouldn't have, really preached as well. But cleave in Hebrew, it's a permanent gluing, just boom, cleave. And let me say that it's a face-to-face cleaving. Some say the essence of masculinity is initiation, the essence of femininity is response. And she's the princess, you're the prince. And she awaits the prince to move toward her and to move toward her face to face. And the act of sex, the oneness, to a woman is deeper than the physical act. The physical act demonstrates to her our oneness, that we are connected face to face, heart to heart, spirit to spirit. And in all the animal kingdoms, we are the only ones that have sex face to face in that sense. And so why? Because we are created in the image of God, and we are set apart. His glory is on us. And even the act of sex is a demonstration of this. And even in relationship to the woman, she gets it. She understands. And to her, sex is more like the intermission. Drama is the romance. And sex becomes the symbol of the drama of the romance. That's why she can't have sex if the drama is not there in a romantic sense. Listen to Genesis 29:34. My husband will become attached to me. See that physical attachment. Genesis 30:20. My husband will dwell with me. See the proximity issue again. Song of Solomon 3:4. When I found him whom my soul loves, I held on to him and would not let him go. Or Song of Solomon 2:6. Let his left hand be under my head and his right hand embrace me. This whole issue of closeness and face to face, I think you get it. Now, not all women are that way. Proverbs 7:11 talks about a wife. She is boisterous and rebellious, and her feet do not remain at home. So there are Jezebels. So again, it's the bell curve. Not every woman is virtuous. Listen to Deuteronomy 24:5. When a man takes a new wife, he shall not go out with the army nor be charged with any duty. He shall be free at home 1 year and shall give happiness to his wife whom he has taken. Wow, what's going on here? They understood that transitions are important. Did you know probably the first 2 minutes, first 30 seconds when you meet each night, if you're both working, you come home, that 30 seconds of transition sets the tone for the rest of the evening. The Israelites understood that first year set the tone for the rest of the marriage. So the first year, this soldier was to be with his wife because there's so many things she goes through emotionally that we men don't, It's kind of like, it's just... But so be with her that first year. Bring her happiness. That first year, you be with her. Then go out to war at the end of that year and die. But about this face-to-face closeness, is there something in the woman that wants this? They've done research, the whole issue of which comes first, the chicken or the egg type thing. Is it social learning that creates this, or is it nature, nurture, that whole issue? What causes the human being? Of course, they wanted to find this out, and they did research on infant girls and infant boys. And when the infant girl is in the crib and she begins to see and look, they had her in the crib, and they would have humans stand around the crib, and they wanted to see the amount of eye contact she made with the human eyes, human faces. And it was amazing. This little girl, almost 100% of the time, looked at the two eyes. Why didn't she look at the elbow? She doesn't know she's got eyes. Why did she look at eyes? This is nature, because there was no social learning there. Then they wanted to see what the little infant boy, same thing. He's in this, and he's opening his eyes, looking around. They have the humans around there, and he looks at the human faces until he sees the ceiling fan. See, we know this, but we don't pay attention. Little boys will look right through you. They don't. And then they're men, and they get married. Not wrong, just... When Joy was 4, my daughter, we lived in Michigan, I was pastoring, and, February night, Michigan, it's just pitch black. She'd be laid down for bed, 7:30, whatever, shut the door, turn off the lights, and literally, I'm laying there, she's next to me in a little motor mouth, talk, 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 and literally, I cannot see my hand in front of my face. I'm just laying there, and she's talk, 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 and then suddenly she says, Daddy, look at me, and takes her hands and moves my face, cheeks toward her face. Already at 4, if I'm not looking, I'm not. See, women responded to that in the question. Listening. You can always tell the high pitch boy listening. See, but you know that. It's something in you. You can't not look when you talk heart to heart. It's very difficult, even when you're driving. He said that to you? When did he say that to you? Deborah Tannen, the great secular linguist, says that women give the report to build rapport. That's how you build rapport, how you connect. And you give the report. And when you give the report, you look at the person. Why wouldn't you? I mean, this is not rocket science, Emerson. You're talking to a person. You look at them. You look at them eye to eye. And you talk. You just look at the eyes. You can't not do that. God made you that way. But he made your son different. See, when there's provocation among males, what they've done is research, for instance, in the wolf pack. They've seen the senior male, alpha male, with these 3 junior alpha males, and there's meat. And now there's this conflict, and the junior males have to come to a point, do they want to take on the senior male and one of them take over? And if they decide that they don't want to fight, literally, they put their spout in the ground, look away, put their shoulder in the ground, and cower and look away. It's a statement of deference and honor. They look away. Runners are told when you're running through a neighborhood and a dog is coming at you full, don't turn and look at the dog. It's a provocation. Just look away. And they'll usually bark, and they'll stay on their edge. Now, there's no guarantee of that. Don't sue me. And I definitely know if you're in Africa, the lions will come after you. You just turn your head, they're not going to go away. But I think you get the point. There's tremendous truth in that. One day we had some horses in our neighborhood in a corral, and I'm going to do the horse whisper thing, so I stood with my back. See, the two horses were looking at me, and I'm looking at them. And then I just turned, did this, and then they came over. It's a statement that I'm not here to take you on. And so, as a man, well, I remember the little boy, when I was 6, I remember playing kickball, Franklin School, Peoria, Illinois, and I kicked the ball, and I always liked sports so much, and then I realized I could get around first, and then I could get around second, I realized I can get around third, I can get home before they get the ball back. We don't play kickball today, but then we did. That was the life. Kickball. But a little girl walked between me and home plate, and I was looking back, and I just plowed her over, knocked her over. And today, what would a teacher say? Yeah, Eddie, my nickname was Eddie. Eddie, you say you're sorry. You look at her, and I'm going to medicate you. Look at her, tell her you're sorry. Look at her. But if you let a little boy do it based on his nature, say, I know you're a young man of honor. I know you didn't mean to do that, but you tell her you're sorry. I'm sorry. It's within his nature. But we are going to change these little boys to look face to face and say, I'm sorry. Why? Because the intellectual elites are evolutionists. They're good-willed people. They're intellectual. They're better people than me. But they have subscribed to the belief that we are evolving and women are farther down the thing, and we are going to change boys through medication, through socialization, and through legal consequence. And this is spilled over into the culture. And all I'm saying is soften up. Let's pull back. And let's instead see, and I'm not trying to do that to get applause. I'm saying instead, let's see this other virtue in him and allow that and bring that out and watch what happens, particularly with your own boy. It's so precious. It's so tender. But we've got to come to grips with the fact that God made us differently. And if you don't believe that, then it's going to be difficult for you to adhere to this. I get that. If I was a mechanical evolutionist who believed I was here through randomness and believed that we are progressing through an evolutionary process, I would believe the same thing. But I have made a decision that I'm not. That was one of the reasons I came to Christ. I just couldn't subscribe to that worldview. It just didn't make sense to me. But your son, then, is this way. Your husband's this way. So now, am I saying this to justify you husbands not looking at your wife face to face? No, that's not the point. I'm helping her understand. But now, I understand why you do that. But here's the deal. Your wife is not trying to pick a fight. She's not trying to provoke you. She is feeling hurt. So this is why, as a man of honor, you can go and look at her face to face and deal with that without feeling that this is somehow going to create a worse problem. It's not. She'll actually soften at a certain point. And you can see the power of this, but it's not going to be comfortable. It's never comfortable. But I'm saying to you, that's okay, and there's nothing wrong with you. But I will tell you, when you look away, when you walk away, you're killing her. Because you're taking up offense, and your heartbeats are going through your throat, and you're reacting to something that's not there. And then you end up coming across even more unloving. You need to know you matter to her more than anything. This is not a complaint to you. This is a compliment to you. Does she deliver her need in a way that's appetizing to you? No. I get that. But you've got to decode on the marital bus ride. Decode, and everything will change, though nothing may change. I will tell you, refusing to be alone face to face can be an emotional killer to her. So decode, has she been reacting to you in a way that feels disrespectful? Are you on the crazy cycle? Did you say or do something earlier that felt unloving to her? You said, I don't want to be face to face with you. No one can look at that face at that moment. And you go on and on. You just miss the whole thing, and you just make a mess of it. It's at the end of the day, it's pointless. Completely pointless, because it's missing the whole dynamic. And it's also misrepresenting your deepest heart. So, how sad when she is seeking reassurance of your love and is not trying to be disrespectful, but you end up taking up offense and spinning you both on the crazy cycle. So just know she's moving toward you to be close with you face to face. In fact, one guy says, I get it, Emerson, I get it. She wants to be close with me. In fact, that touch, holding hands, right? Yeah. He said, Emerson, I get it. I hold my wife's hand now everywhere we go. Because when I let go, she shops. In fact, there was this couple that came into a restaurant. They were in their 50s, and as they came in, she noticed another couple over there on the side, and he was sitting on the same side of not the pew, but at the restaurant, and he had his arm around her and was just whispering sweet nothings in her, ear, and she was looking at him, and he was looking at her, and women can see this thing from 3 planets away. They come into a restaurant, they can see it. They can. Wow, it just stands out. It's wow. And so now she's sitting there watching this. Her husband's looking at the menu. And she says, do you see that couple over there? Yeah? Why? Well, look at how he's got his arm around her. He's whispering sweet nothings in her ear. They're looking at each other. And he's sitting right next to her. I mean, why don't you ever do anything like that? I don't even know that woman. They were sitting in a booth. I could not think of booth. How old are we now?